The head of Earth's ambassador rolled across the imperial palace floor. Philip Griffin, humanity's most celebrated diplomat, lay decapitated before a smirking imperial empress and her conniving Saurian advisor, Cygnus. The public execution, televised across the galaxy, shattered a fragile peace and plunged humanity into grief. For decades, Earth had chafed under the tyrannical rule of the Galactic Empire. Humans endured oppressive laws, restricted technology, and insults at being called a lesser species. Ambassador Griffin had journeyed to the glittering imperial capital, hoping to secure fairer trade deals for his people. But the sham espionage trial and brutal killing made the Empire's contempt for humans all too clear. Fury boiled through Earth's population at this shocking act of aggression. Outraged leaders vowed to avenge Griffin and finally break free from imperial shackles. Rebel cells made secret contact with other species who also yearned to defeat the Empire. Principled Saurians like Cygnus's own brother Antares joined the human cause. Together, they hatched plans to advance Earth's technological capabilities through clandestine collaboration. Saboteurs struck imperial power plants and supply lines to weaken the enemy. Rumors swirled of a devastating new human weapon. Those whispers proved true when an entire imperial battle fleet was annihilated by an unknown attacker. Rebel leader Arya Finn soon claimed credit in a fiery speech, revealing humanity's advanced stealth ships armed with antimatter cannons and particle beams. She proclaimed Earth's subjugation was over. News of early human victories electrified the galaxy's downtrodden. Harsh imperial crackdowns only fueled more unrest, as oppressed races sensed a chance for freedom. Rebel diplomats forged alliances while the Empire's grip on power crumbled. The first rumblings of Earth's bold uprising reverberated across the stars, promising an epic confrontation that would reshape the galactic order forever. As the shock of humanity's sudden military triumphs reverberated through the galaxy, Admiral Zephyr Vance wasted no time pressing the offensive. His stealth armada materialized without warning in the skies over a dozen imperial shipyards and weapons depots. Particle beams and antimatter warheads rained devastation upon the vital installations, reducing them to molten slag before imperial forces could mount an effective defense. In mere hours, the Empire's capacity to rebuild its battered fleets was crippled. Vance's holographic image soon spread across rebel media feeds. His sharp, hawkish features projected grim purpose as he vowed, "We will not rest until humanity is free from the Empire's iron grip. They underestimated our strength. That mistake will be their undoing." On Saurus, Imperial Governor Drusus paced in his opulent palace, barking orders at subordinates scrambling to contain the sudden unrest. In the streets below, Antares and his rebel faction seized control of government buildings and communication hubs with ruthless efficiency. Human special forces teams provided crucial support, surgically eliminating Imperial loyalists with advanced weaponry the Saurians had never before witnessed. As Drusus's regime crumbled, Antares proclaimed to cheering crowds, "Saurus stands with Earth. Together, we will forge a new future free from Imperial tyranny." Deep beneath the surface of humanity's homeworld, Dr. Elias Vorman surveyed the buzzing activity in his sprawling research complex. Scientists and engineers hunched over workstations, dissecting captured Imperial technology and feverishly designing upgrades for rebel warships. Vorman's gaze fell upon a revolutionary shielding system taking shape in the central lab. It was but one of many marvels pouring forth from Earth's brightest minds, innovations that would soon transform the rebels from scrappy underdogs to a formidable fighting force capable of challenging the Empire's might head-on. Light years away, Imperial Intelligence Director Malvora Karn scowled at the latest reports scrolling across her displays. The pattern emerging from the data was unmistakable. Humanity's capabilities were far beyond what the Empire had believed possible. Karn's arguments for swift, decisive action met only dismissal and scorn from the Empire's bloated military hierarchy. Overruling their sputtered objections, Karn summoned her most skilled operatives. "We must infiltrate the human rebellion," she commanded, "and uncover the source of their newfound power. The survival of our empire depends on it." As Imperial agents slipped into the shadows to begin their clandestine missions, the rebellion's spark ignited a firestorm of resistance across the subjugated worlds. Beings who had long suffered under the Empire's heel drew inspiration from Earth's valiant stand. Whispers of human courage, ingenuity, and audacity became the rallying cry of a galaxy yearning for liberation. No story captured the popular imagination more than the exploits of Captain Alara Voss. Already renowned as a peerless pilot, Voss catapulted to galactic celebrity when leaked footage showed her lone fighter craft locked in a desperate duel with an Imperial warship. Outmatched and outgunned, Voss's skill and daring saw her through, the warship blossoming into a fireball as her final salvo found its mark. In an empire unaccustomed to defeat, Voss's triumph struck a devastating blow to Imperial morale. The rebels' victories forced a grim Emperor Jaros to action. Upon his order, Grand Admiral Theron Daxus assumed direct command of Imperial forces tasked with crushing the rapidly spreading insurrection. Daxus's intellect was as legendary as his utter ruthlessness. He would brook no further failures in disciplining the upstart humans and their allies. As Daxus's counteroffensive began to take shape, the rebel leadership understood that a decisive confrontation loomed on the horizon. Earth and its allies threw every resource into expanding their fleets and arming their soldiers for the cataclysmic showdown to come. The war for humanity's future, for the galaxy's very freedom, was rushing toward a crescendo from which there could be no turning back. The rebel flagship Defiance hung in the inky void, its sleek hull overflowing with advanced weaponry. On the bridge, Admiral Zephyr Vance studied tactical displays with laser focus. A priority transmission from Earth Command flashed across his screen. "Admiral, our worst fears are confirmed," came Arya Finn's grave voice. "Imperial forces have seized the Prometheus Prism." Vance's teeth clenched. "How?" "A precision strike on the research facility. We managed to evacuate most of our personnel, but—" "Dr. Solaris?" A hint of pride crept into Finn's tone. "Safe, thanks to Captain Voss, but the loss of the prism is a critical blow." Vance nodded grimly. "We knew this day might come. Initiate Protocol Omega." Across rebel-controlled space, hidden data caches sprang to life. Years of painstaking research into the prism's secrets began flooding secure networks, ensuring the hard-won knowledge would not be lost. On the Imperial capital, Malvra Karn strode purposefully through gleaming corridors. The Prometheus Prism, a crystalline dodecahedron pulsing with otherworldly energy, floated in a containment field before her. She allowed herself a rare smile of satisfaction. "Director Karn!" A stern voice rang out. She turned to face Emperor Jaros, his eyes gleaming with hardly restrained greed. "I trust you understand the gravity of your discovery?" Karn bowed low. "Indeed, Your Majesty. With the prism's power, we can crush this insurrection once and for all." Jaros's lips curled into a sneer. "See that you do not fail me." As Karn exited, Grand Admiral Daxus fell into step beside her. "The Emperor grows unstable," he murmured. Karn's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Daxus. Such talk borders on treason." "And yet you do not deny it," Daxus countered. "We must consider all possibilities if we are to preserve the Empire." Meanwhile, on the neutral world of Zephyria Prime, rebel diplomat Antares found himself face-to-face with First Minister Thala. The towering, blue-skinned Zephyrian regarded him with unblinking, compound eyes. "Your claims are intriguing," Thala buzzed. "But what assurances can you offer that your rebellion will not become as tyrannical as the empire it seeks to overthrow?" Antares met her gaze steadily. "None but our word and our actions. We fight not just for human freedom, but for all sentient beings. The prism's knowledge belongs to the galaxy, not to be hoarded by any one power." Thala's antennae twitched thoughtfully. "A noble sentiment, but one that may cost you dearly in the coming battle." Light years away, Dr. Lyra Solaris hunched over a makeshift workstation aboard Captain Voss's stealth fighter. Her fingers flew across holographic displays as she raced to reclaim lost ground. "How goes it, Doc?" Voss called from the cockpit. Solaris allowed herself a grim smile. "Better than the Empire might hope. They have the prism, but not the key to fully unlocking its power. Not yet." As rebel and Imperial forces alike girded themselves for the coming storm, The fate of a galaxy hung in the balance. The Prometheus Prism, an artifact of unimaginable potential, now stood as both the greatest hope and the gravest threat the stars had ever known. Admiral Zephyr Vance's holographic image flickered before the Rebel Leadership Council. "Operation Shadow Strike is a go," he announced, his voice tight with anticipation. "We strike at the heart of Imperial shipbuilding capacity." Arya Finn nodded grimly. "Godspeed, Admiral. May your aim be true." As the transmission cut, Vance turned to his bridge crew. "Engage stealth systems. Set course for the Erebus shipyards." The Defiance and its accompanying fleet vanished into the void, leaving barely a ripple in space-time. Days later, they materialized in the shadow of Erebus's orbital rings. Massive skeletal frames of half-built Imperial dreadnoughts loomed against the starry backdrop. "Commence Phase 1, Vance ordered. Sleek Rebel shuttles detached from their motherships, ferrying elite saboteur teams toward the sprawling facility. Among them was Lieutenant Kira Chen, her pulse quickening as their craft approached a docking port. "Security scan incoming," the pilot warned. Chen's fingers flew across her datapad, transmitting stolen Imperial codes. Tense seconds passed before a green light flashed. "We're clear. They bought it." The team disembarked, moving with practiced efficiency through sterile corridors. They encountered no resistance, their deception holding firm. Chen led her squad to a primary control nexus, where they swiftly overwhelmed the skeleton night crew. "Initiating virus upload," Chen reported, plugging a data crystal into the mainframe. Screens flickered and alarms blared as the malicious code spread like wildfire through Erebus's systems. Across the shipyards, Rebel strike teams targeted key manufacturing centers. Precision explosives shattered delicate equipment. Particle beams sliced through vital power conduits. Chen's team regrouped at their extraction point, the distant sounds of chaos echoing through the station. "Mission accomplished," she reported as they blasted free of the doomed facility. Behind them, the mighty Erebus shipyards died a death of 1,000 cuts. On the desert world of Navras, another strike unfolded. Marcus Cole crouched behind a sand-scoured boulder, surveying the nondescript Imperial research base through high-powered optics. Beside him, a Zephyrian mercenary chittered softly. "I know, Vex," Cole muttered. "I don't like it either, but we've got a job to do." He keyed his comm. "All teams in position. Execute on my mark." Cole's diverse squad sprang into action. Human hackers scrambled the base's security systems, while Zephyrian shock troops breached the perimeter. Cole himself led the main assault, his plasma rifles spitting blue fire as they fought their way toward the central labs. The battle was swift but brutal. Cole's team suffered casualties, but Imperial resistance crumbled before their relentless advance. In the aftermath, Cole strode through smoking corridors, surveying the carnage. "Sir," a voice called, "we've secured the primary data core." Cole nodded, then frowned as he noticed a commotion near the lab entrance. "Report!" A grim-faced soldier approached. "We captured several scientists, but it looks like they managed to evacuate their lead researcher, some human named Valor." Cole's blood ran cold. "Damn it. Grab everything you can and plant the charges. We're leaving." As their dropships roared away from Navras, Cole couldn't shake the feeling that their partial victory might prove Pyrrhic in the long run. On Earth, Dr. Elias Vorman's eyes widened as he pored over the stolen data. "This is worse than we imagined," he breathed. "If they complete this weapon—" He turned to his assembled team. "We need to find Dr. Valor. Now." Vorman's words hung in the air, the gravity of the situation palpable. Before he could elaborate further, alarms blared throughout the facility. Arya Finn's voice crackled over the comm system. "Dr. Vorman, we've received an urgent transmission from Admiral Vance. The Empire has launched a massive offensive in the Kylian cluster. Our forces are taking heavy losses." Vorman's face hardened. "We need to accelerate our research. Every second counts." As Vorman and his team redoubled their efforts light years away, the void of space erupted in chaos. The Kylian cluster, once a bastion of rebel activity, now burned under the relentless assault of Grand Admiral Theron Daxis's armada. Admiral Zephyr Vance stood on the bridge of the Defiance, his fist clenched as he gripped the tactical display. Imperial warships swarmed from all directions, their weapons tearing through the outmatched rebel fleet. "Evasive maneuvers," Vance barked. "Concentrate fire on their lead ships. We need to punch a hole in their formation." The Defiance shuddered as enemy fire hammered its shields. Vance's mind raced, calculating trajectories and weak points in the Imperial assault. He spotted a gap in their flank, a risky path to potential salvation. "All ships form up on the Defiance," he ordered. "Prepare for emergency jump on my mark." As the battered rebel fleet coalesced around their flagship, Vance held his breath. Seconds stretched into eternity as targeting computers locked onto the narrow window of escape. "Now!" In a blinding flash, the rebel ships vanished, leaving the frustrated Imperial forces to bombard empty space. They rematerialized at the edge of the cluster, battered but not broken. Vance exhaled slowly, allowing himself a moment of grim satisfaction. They had avoided total destruction, but the cost had been steep. As damage reports flooded in, he steeled himself for the battles yet to come. On the galactic capital of Parnitha, the veneer of Imperial control cracked and splintered. What began as isolated protests swelled into a tidal wave of civil unrest. Citizens who had long chafed under the Empire's iron grip now found their voices, emboldened by news of rebel victories. Antares moved through the shadows of Parnitha's sprawling megacity, his diplomatic skills now turned to fomenting rebellion. He met with underground leaders, providing tactical advice and promises of support from the growing alliance. "The Empire is not invincible," he told a packed safehouse. "Every world that joins our cause brings us one step closer to victory." As if in response to his words, the night sky erupted in flames. Imperial security towers toppled, their automated defenses neutralized by rebel hackers. The streets filled with the thunder of marching feet as citizens poured out of their homes, no longer cowed by fear. Antares watched from a rooftop as the insurrection spread like wildfire. His comm unit crackled to life with a priority message from Earth Command. "Antares, we're detecting multiple hyperspace signatures approaching Parnitha. It's the Imperial Guard. You need to evacuate immediately." He grimaced, knowing the brutality that was to come. As he made his way to the extraction point, Antares vowed that the Empire would pay for every drop of blood it shed this day. Across the galaxy, on the fortress world of Cassidus, Colonel Tiberius Cole led his team through the labyrinthine underbelly of the Imperial shipyards. Sweat beaded on his brow as he interfaced with the facility's security systems, his cybernetic implants working overtime to bypass layers of encryption. "We're in," he muttered, a predatory grin spreading across his face. "Initiating Phase 2. Around him, human hackers and alien mercenaries sprang into action. Vex, the Zephyrian shock trooper, took point as they advanced deeper into the complex. The distant hum of machinery grew louder, punctuated by the rhythmic clangs of robotic assemblers. Cole's team emerged onto a vast observation deck overlooking the shipyards. Dozens of half-constructed Imperial warships hung suspended in massive gravitational cradles. He approached a central control terminal, fingers flying across the holographic interface. "Uploading the virus now," he announced. "Stand by for fireworks." For a moment, nothing happened. Then chaos erupted. Robotic drones swarmed like angry insects, their programming hijacked to turn them against their masters. Welding torches carved gashes in hulls, while manipulator arms tore delicate components to shreds. Alarms blared as Imperial security forces scrambled to respond. Cole's team fought their way back through the complex, Vex's plasma rifle clearing a path through waves of defenders. As they reached their stealth shuttle, Cole paused to admire their handiwork. The shipyards were in flames, years of Imperial naval production reduced to scrap in a matter of minutes. "Mission accomplished," he reported, allowing himself a moment of pride before the gravity of their situation reasserted itself. "Now let's get the hell out of here before—" His words were cut short as the sky above Cassadus lit up with the telltale flashes of ships dropping out of hyperspace. The rebel fleet had arrived, catching the Imperial defenders with their pants down. Cole watched in awe as Admiral Vance's ships tore through the disabled orbital defenses. their new energy barriers shrugging off return fire. It was a masterstroke, a devastating blow to the Empire's military might. As his shuttle raced to rendezvous with the fleet, Cole knew that this victory would not go unanswered. The Empire would strike back with terrible fury, and the rebels would need every advantage they could muster to weather the storm. The rebel fleet emerged from hyperspace, battle-scarred but triumphant. Admiral Zephyr Vance stood on the bridge of the Defiance, his face etched with grim satisfaction as he surveyed the destruction wrought upon Cassadus. The Imperial shipyards, once a symbol of the Empire's industrial might, now drifted in ruins. But Vance knew better than to savor the victory for long. "Status report," he barked. His executive officer approached, datapad in hand. "Sir, Colonel Cole's team is aboard. Minimal casualties sustained. However, we're detecting a massive surge of Imperial communications traffic." Vance's eyes narrowed. "Patch it through." The bridge's main view screen flickered to life, displaying a barrage of encrypted transmissions. As rebel codebreakers worked to decipher them, fragmented images began to emerge. Vance's blood ran cold as he saw the unmistakable visage of Emperor Xeros, his face contorted with rage. "Accelerate development. The Scourge. Annihilate." The fragments were enough. Vance turned to his communications officer. "Get me a secure line to Earth Command. Now!" Hours later, the rebel leadership convened in an emergency session. Holographic projections flickered around the war room as intelligence analysts presented their findings. Dr. Elias Vorman's voice quavered as he spoke. "We've confirmed the existence of a moon-sized superweapon under construction in the Zorvac system. They're calling it the Scourge." A ripple of dismay spread through the assembled rebels. Admiral Vance leaned forward, his voice steady. "We must strike now before this abomination becomes operational. I propose—" "With all due respect, Admiral," Colonel Tiberius Cole interrupted, his cybernetic eye glowing faintly, "we can't afford to divide our forces. The Empire is reeling from our victory at Cassadus. This is our chance to strike at the heart of their regime." The room erupted in heated debate. Arya Finn raised her hand for silence. "While we argue, the Empire moves forward. We need actionable intelligence." As if in answer to her words, a priority transmission cut through the chamber. Admiral Valna Niestrom's hologram materialized, her expression urgent. "We've intercepted Imperial communications. The Scourge's primary firing matrix is being moved to a remote outpost." Vance seized on the information. "This is our chance, a surgical strike to cripple the weapon before it can be used." Cole opened his mouth to object, but Niestrom continued. "There's more. The outpost is commanded by Alara Malvir, daughter of Admiral Jarek Malvir, the Scourge's overseer." A hush fell over the room. Jakob Cade, the human pilot who had been silent until now, stepped forward. "Ilara," he whispered, his voice a mixture of pain and longing. Vance's eyes narrowed. "You know her?" Cade nodded slowly. "We were close before she chose the Empire over—" He trailed off, unable to finish. Arya Finn's voice cut through the tension. "This complicates things, but it doesn't change our objective. Admiral Nystrom, assemble a strike team. Your mission is to destroy that firing matrix at all costs." As the rebels mobilized for their daring assault, light years away, Admiral Jarek Malvir stood before a towering hologram of Emperor Xeros. The Emperor's eyes blazed with nearly unleashed fury. "The rebels grow bolder by the day, Malvir. I want the Scourge operational, immediately." Malvir bowed low. "Yes, my Emperor. I've taken steps to accelerate the activation sequence. Soon, we will have the ultimate bargaining chip." As the hologram faded, Malvir turned to the viewport. Beyond, the skeletal frame of the Scourge loomed against the starry void. A thin smile crossed his face as he contemplated the power soon to be at his fingertips. Little did he know that even now, a rebel strike force raced towards his carefully laid contingency. The future of the cosmos hung in the balance as two opposing forces hurtled towards an inevitable collision. The rebel strike force emerged from hyperspace, a dagger aimed at the heart of the Empire's monstrous creation. Colonel Tiberius Cole stood at the helm of the lead ship, his cybernetic eye glowing as it processed tactical data. "All units, prepare for engagement," he commanded, his voice steady despite the weight of their mission. "Remember, our primary target is the Scourge's power core." As rebel ships swarmed towards the massive superweapon, Imperial defenses sprang to life. Laser batteries erupted in a symphony of destruction, filling space with deadly beams of energy. "Evasive maneuvers," Cole barked. "Gamma Squadron, clear us a path to the main hangar." The rebel fighters darted and weaved through the maelstrom, their energy shields flickering under the barrage. Cole's ship shuddered as it took a glancing hit, but held firm. Inside the strike team's hold, Dr. Vorman ran final checks on the entropy field generator. The device hummed ominously, its potential hardly restrained within its housing. "We'll only get one shot at this," Vorman muttered, more to himself than the assembled strike team. As the rebel ships punched through the Scourge's outer defenses, Jakob Cade led a contingent of fighters to engage the Imperial squadrons scrambling to intercept them. His hands danced across the controls, muscle memory taking over as he dove into the fray. "Watch your 6, Talon 3, he called out, rolling his fighter to blast an Imperial pursuer off his wingman's tail. The battle raged around the Scourge, a deadly dance of metal and energy. Cole's team fought their way deeper into the station's bowels, the entropy field generator strapped to Vex's back like an oversized backpack. "We're approaching the power core," Cole reported, his cybernetics interfacing with the station's systems. "Prepare for—" His words were cut short as a familiar figure stepped into view, flanked by Imperial guards. Ilara Malvir, her face a mask of persistence, leveled a sleek pistol at the rebel team. "I can't let you do this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Outside, Cade's fighter spun through a corkscrew maneuver, narrowly avoiding a barrage of Imperial fire. As he pulled out of the turn, his heart nearly stopped. There, displayed on his targeting computer, was Ilara's personal fighter. "Ilara," he breathed, memories flooding back. "Don't make me do this." Inside the Scourge, Cole's team tensed for combat, but before either side could open fire, the station rocked violently. Alarms blared as the entropy field generator activated prematurely, its effects cascading through the power core. "It's destabilizing," Vorman shouted over the cacophony. "We need to evacuate now." Ilara's eyes widened in realization. She lowered her weapon, turning to her father's voice crackling over the comms. "All personnel, abandon ship." Admiral Malvir's voice rang out, tinged with desperation. "Initiating final protocol." As rebel and Imperial forces alike scrambled to escape the doomed station, Malvir input a series of commands. The Scourge's reactor went critical, building to an apocalyptic crescendo. Cade's sensors screamed warnings as energy readings spiked off the charts. He watched in horror as Ilara's fighter made a beeline for his position, weapons primed. "Ilara, please," he pleaded over an open channel. "Don't throw your life away for this." At the last moment, Ilara's fighter veered away, narrowly missing Cade's ship. He caught a glimpse of her face through the cockpit, a mixture of pain and dedication etched across her features. The Scourge's final moments played out in terrible silence. A blinding flash erupted from its core, expanding outward in a wave of unimaginable destructive force. Rebel ships scattered, their engines straining to outrun the inferno. As the shockwave dissipated, the awful truth became clear. The nearby world of Callus, once home to millions, now hung in space as a charred husk. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the shocked voices of surviving pilots reporting in. Cade's hands trembled on the controls, his pupils dilating from the enormity of what had just transpired. In the distance, he caught sight of Ilara's fighter, limping away from the devastation. For a moment, their eyes met across the void, a silent understanding passing between them. As the scattered rebel fleet regrouped, the weight of their victory mingled with the crushing guilt of lives lost. The war had entered a new phase, one that would reshape the galaxy in ways none could have foreseen. The aftermath of the Scourge's destruction hung heavy over the rebel fleet. Months passed as they regrouped, mourned their losses, and planned their next move. But the war wasn't over. It had only entered a new, more desperate phase. Admiral Zephyr Vance stood on the bridge of the Defiance, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display of their ultimate prize, Emperor Zeros, bound and under heavy guard in the ship's brig. "Sir," his executive officer reported, "we're receiving urgent transmissions from our intelligence network." Vance's eyes narrowed. "Put it through." The holo display shifted, revealing a map of Imperial territory. Red markers clustered around a single point, the fortress world of Carthor. "It's Malvir," Vance growled. "He's consolidating what's left of the Loyalists." Colonel Tiberius Cole strode onto the bridge, his cybernetic eye whirring as it processed the tactical data. "Admiral, our agents report mass executions on Imperial-held worlds. Malvir's gone mad." Vance's heart made. "Then we end this. Now." The rebel assault on Carthor was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Vance's ships traded furious salvos with the fortress world's orbital defenses, while Cole led the ground assault. The colonel's boots hit Carthor's surface amid a hail of plasma fire and debris. "Push forward," Cole shouted, his voice barely audible over the din of battle. His troops advanced through ruined streets, engaging fanatical shock troopers in vicious close-quarters combat. Weeks bled into one another as the siege dragged on. The rebels gained ground inch by bloody inch, their purpose tested with each fallen comrade. In the shadows of the conflict, a more insidious war unfolded. Admiral Valna Niestrom's cruiser shuddered as another explosion rocked the hull. "Status report," she barked. Her tactical officer's face was grim. "It's Malvora, sir. His assassins nearly breached the command deck." Nystrom's lips thinned to a hard line. She opened a secure channel. "This is Admiral Nystrom to Zane Cade. You have full authorization. Find Malvora and end this." On Carthor's surface, Cole's team fought their way through the labyrinthine corridors of the planetary control nexus. Alarms blared as they raced against time to stop Malvir's reckoning protocol. "We're in," Cole reported, his fingers flying over the command console. "But the firing sequence is already—" A searing bolt of energy carved through the air, missing Cole's head by inches. He spun, raising his weapon to face Varric Malvora. The assassin's eyes gleamed with malice. "You're too late, human." Cole didn't waste breath on a reply. He charged, crossing blades with Malvora in a furious duel. Sparks flew as they clashed, each seeking an opening to end the other. Above the planet, Grand Admiral Theron Daxus's voice cut through the comm channels. "All ships, this is your only window. Concentrate fire on these coordinates. Scour the surface." The sky lit up as the combined firepower of the rebel armada rained down on Carthor. The planet's defenses crumbled under the relentless assault. In the control nexus, Cole stood over Malvora's lifeless body, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He turned back to the console, fingers dancing across the keys to complete the sabotage of the reckoning protocol. "This is Cole," he transmitted. "Malvora's down, the weapon's offline." The final push to breach Carthor's command bunker was a blur of plasma fire and explosions. When the smoke cleared, Admiral Jarek Malvir stood surrounded by rebel troops, his once pristine uniform in tatters. As Malvir was led away in restraints, Cole caught Vance's eye. No words were needed. They both knew the tide had finally turned. But as the rebels secured their hard-won victory, new challenges loomed on the horizon. The galaxy, scarred by years of brutal conflict, cried out for justice and healing. The real work of building a lasting peace was only just beginning. The victory on Carthor faded into memory as the rebel fleet made its way to Avalon. Admiral Zephyr Vance stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching as the verdant world grew larger in the viewscreen. His face hardened as he contemplated the challenges that lay ahead. "Entering orbit, sir," reported the helm officer. Vance nodded. "Prepare my shuttle. It's time we decide the fate of the galactic realm." The summit convened in Avalon's Grand Assembly Hall, a soaring structure of crystalline spires and sweeping arches. Representatives from 100 worlds filled the chamber, their voices a cacophony of languages and dialects. Ian Stone, the human ambassador, took the podium. His voice carried across the hall, silencing the chatter. "We stand at a crossroads," he began. The Empire is defeated, but without a unifying force, chaos threatens to consume us all. I propose a Confederated Systems Alliance, a democratic union that preserves our sovereignty while ensuring our collective security. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Valnatiras, the Zephyrian diplomat, rose to speak. Her silver skin shimmered under the hall's lights. The Zephyrian people stand with Ambassador Stone, she declared. This alliance offers us the stability we need without sacrificing our hard-won freedom. As debate raged, Grand Admiral Theron Daxus leaned towards Vance. It's a pretty idea, he muttered, but without teeth it'll collapse at the first sign of trouble. Vance's eyes narrowed. He strode to the center of the chamber, his voice cutting through the din. We cannot afford half measures, he proclaimed. I propose an Earth Protectorate. Humanity's technological edge can safeguard all our worlds against future threats. The chamber erupted. Some delegates cheered, while others shouted in protest. Dr. Lyra Solaris, her face etched with concern, approached Vance. Admiral, this smacks of the very imperialism we fought to overthrow, she warned. Before Vance could respond, alarms blared throughout the complex. A breathless aide burst into the chamber. The Brecken matriarchy has withdrawn from negotiations, he reported. They've launched attacks on human outposts across their territory. Chaos engulfed the assembly. Vance's comm unit crackled to life with Colonel Cole's voice. Sir, we're mobilizing strike teams to secure key archaeosites before anyone else can grab them, Cole reported. Permission to deploy? Vance hesitated, weighing the consequences. Finally, he nodded. Do it, Colonel. We can't afford to lose those assets. As the summit teetered on the brink of collapse, Vance surveyed the fractured alliances and competing interests that threatened to tear apart everything they had fought for. The true test of leadership, he realized, was only just beginning. The Avalon summit erupted into chaos as news of the Brecken attack spread. Delegates shouted accusations and demands, their faces contorted with anger and fear. Admiral Vance's unwavering focus swept across the chamber, taking in the fracturing alliances before him. This changes nothing, he declared, his voice cutting through the din. We must stand united or... A thunderous explosion rocked the building, showering the assembly with debris. As the dust settled, Colonel Tiberius Cole strode in, flanked by a cadre of grim-faced officers. I'm afraid it changes everything, Admiral, Cole said, his cybernetic eye whirring as it scanned the room. We can no longer afford half measures. Vance's hand instinctively moved to his sidearm. Stand down, Colonel. That's an order. Cole's lips curled into a mirthless smile. I'm afraid I can't do that, sir. Humanity's survival is at stake. As tensions escalated, Dr. Lyra Solaris slipped away, her heart racing. She needed to warn the others about what was unfolding. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiance, Vance paced the bridge, wrestling with an impossible decision. He keyed in a secure channel, hesitating before speaking. Bring the prisoner to my quarters, he ordered. It's time we had a chat with our guest. Emperor Jaros, once the most powerful being in the galaxy, now sat bound and haggard before Vance. The Admiral leaned in, his voice low and urgent. Your empire is gone, but your influence remains. Help us restore order, and I'll guarantee your safety. Jaros's eyes, once filled with imperial hauteur, now blazed with bitter hatred. You destroyed everything I built. Now you can watch as your precious coalition tears itself apart. Vance's comm unit crackled to life. Sir, we're detecting multiple Brecken warships on approach to Andair. They're after the Nexus. The Admiral's blood ran cold. If the Breckens seized that artifact, all hope for peace would be lost. On Andair's war-torn surface, Zane Cade's breath came in ragged gasps as he dove for cover. Plasma bolts sizzled overhead, scorching the alien ruins around him. Vanguard Actual, this is Talon Leader, he shouted into his comm. We're pinned down and taking heavy fire. Cole's voice cut through the static. Hold your position, Cade. Reinforcements are inbound. A deafening roar filled the air as Brecken battlecruisers unleashed their fury from orbit. The ground shook, and great plumes of superheated earth erupted around Cade's position. We don't have time, Cade growled. I'm making a run for the artifact chamber. He sprinted across the debris-strewn field, ducking and weaving as Brecken energy weapons carved swaths of destruction around him. With a final desperate leap, Cade tumbled into the shadowed interior of the Nexus structure. The air hummed with latent power as Cade approached the pulsing core of the alien relic. His hand hesitated over the activation panel. "Cole, I'm at the Nexus. Are you sure about this?" "Do it, Cade," Cole's voice crackled. "It's our only chance." Cade's fingers danced across the alien interface. The Nexus thrummed to life, its energies building to a crescendo. A blinding wave of energy erupted outward, enveloping everything in its path. When Cade's vision cleared, he gasped. The Brecken ships hung motionless in the sky, trapped in shimmering bubbles of distorted space-time. "By the stars," he breathed, "it actually worked." As news of the Nexus's activation spread, the fragile alliance teetered on the brink of collapse. Valna Tyrus, her silver skin reflecting the harsh light of the war room, slammed her fist on the table. "You lied to us all," she accused, glaring at Vance. "A secret pact with Jaros? Have you learned nothing from this war?" Vance's face remained impassive, but his voice carried the weight of his decisions. "I did what was necessary to preserve the peace." "Peace?" Tyrus scoffed. "You mean human dominance." Before Vance could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. A junior officer burst into the room, his face pale. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations from the Nexus. It's destabilizing entire star systems." Vance's blood ran cold as the true consequences of their actions began to unfold. The final battle for the fate of humanity and all alien species had begun, and no one could predict how it would end.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.